Welcome back to my channel. We are going to be going through all the books that are part of series that I've already started, or a few series that I do want to get through before the end of this year, which is going to be rough. Some of these series that I'm going to be showing don't even have their other books out yet, but some do. Some are standalones where you don't even need to read the other books that came out, but a lot are, I don't have a lot of fantasy, but there is a lot of fantasy series that I'm wanting to read. So before we get started, I'm going to start with the books that I don't have. I do want to read the ACOTAR series just because of the hype about it. And Sarah J. Maas is a really good author. I love the way she writes. So that is a series that I do want to read. Don't know if I'm going to like it just because of how much spice I've heard that it has. But it is something I'm interested at least reading to see what it's all about. And I know that there's another book coming out. Ooh, I don't know when the next one's coming out. But I know there's another book coming out as well. So that's a series that I at least want to try. I don't know if I'm going to get to this series this year, but it is something that I really want to read. And I've even been looking at sales on Facebook Marketplace and like looking at good conditions of them. And that is the Harry Potter series. I'm very intrigued to read this, and I'm actually really excited just because I've never watched the movies. I've never read the books. So I think it'd be really cool to read all the books and then just watch all the movies. I've only watched one Harry Potter movie in my life, and it wasn't even like me sitting and watching the whole thing. It was just a rerun on TV all the time. Something with a snake. So maybe something Slytherin. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. I really don't know. But I'm really excited to read Harry Potter. I'm just waiting for the right time to actually purchase those books. Those are like my main ones that I can think of series-wise that I really want to get into. Those are like my main ones that I'm constantly thinking about of wanting to get into to read that isn't on my shelf. So that's somewhere in the near future, hopefully sometime this year, but we'll see. We're going to get into my fantasy series that I need to finish for this year. Some of them I can't because the books aren't even out. But we'll get to that. And then I have a lot of more like romance type books. But usually when you sign yourself up to read a fantasy, you're signing yourself up to read a whole series because that's just how fantasy works. But honestly, I'm not mad because sign me up. Sign me up because when I'm attached to characters, especially in a fantasy, I want to read more. Like, it works out perfect. The first one we're going to talk about is Powerless. I loved this. It was this close to a 5-star, so close, but it didn't give me that 5-star feeling. But I do think about this book quite often, and I am so excited for, I'm pretty sure she's coming out with a novella first really soon called Powerful, and it talks about her best friend in here, which I can't remember her name. The main character's best friend in here is in this story a lot, but we don't really get her point of view. So the novella that's coming out is talking about like basically what she was going through when her best friend was in these trials. Think Hunger Games, but with powers, more like ancient type, I guess. I love this. I know a lot of people have controversy of, oh my gosh, it's too close to Hunger Games. I've never read Hunger Games, but I have watched the movies a lot. She wrote it in such a good way that you don't even think about it. It is duo point of view, which is really cool for a fantasy to be in duo point of view. And the cliffhanger, ooh, you can see a villain origin story starting. I think the novella is coming out and then maybe 2 other ones. I'm not positive on that. Moving on, we have the Fourth Wing series. These are the only 2 that are out. These are big books. This is like 500. This is almost 700. And the next book just got released of when it's coming out and title's Onyx Storm. It is not coming out until January. So we have another 10 months to wait for the 3rd book. This is a 5-book series. So that means we literally have to wait for 3 more books. Who knows? I could be like 26 when I get to reading all these. That's crazy to think about because I am so sad of how long I have to wait to continue this story. How am I going to remember everything? I don't know. This was definitely a 5-star read for me, and this was like the first book that I read fantasy-wise that got me into fantasy. So I know there's like some mixed emotions about the hype of this book, but I do think it's a good book to recommend to like first-time readers to see if they want to be into fantasy at all. It's a good sign to know if you'll be into fantasy or not. So I definitely think it's a good one to start if you're a first-time reader. The next fantasy is Never by Jessa Hastings. I have no idea when the second one's coming out. I don't know if she dropped it or not. I haven't done my research. This is a brand new book that came out in January. Again, mixed emotions. Everyone was hyping this up, and I've not read Magnolia Parks, so people were disappointed, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. In my January wrap-up, I talked about this a little bit, but I did buddy read this with a friend. She didn't have the book, but she is a huge fan of Peter Pan, so she kind of wanted to like hear about it. So I basically did an audiobook for her and read it for her, and they are based in England, so I did use an English accent. Call it cringe, but it made this book work. Basically, if you don't know, this book is about a retelling of Peter Pan, but it's in Wendy's great-granddaughter's point of view. The story is about her in kind of like a love triangle situation with Peter Pan and Captain Hook's son. I think I might have rated it like a 3.5 or a 4. I think the most annoying part that like drove me nuts was when Jameson would speak. He would have a pirate Ireland type accent, but it was like a mixture of accents into one. Trying to understand what he was saying was really hard because it was like almost reading a whole different language just by how he spoke. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of hope she changes that in the next one because it was very distracting in drawing you kind of out of the story because you're trying to figure out, what is he saying? I don't know. So I think that was like the biggest turnoff. And trying to speak his accent was not fun because I was reading this out loud. So it was so hard to like speak his sentences, like his dialogue out loud. So difficult. The last fantasy of series that I have on my shelf is The Throne of Glass. I don't even know how to start with this. I was theorizing a lot while I was reading this. For those who don't know, this is about a young assassin, and she has gotten called by the prince to be the king's assassin and compete in these games to win. There's several contestants that are competing to be the king's designated assassin. After a few years, you basically can be free. So a lot of these people that are competing are prisoners, and they're just basically wanting to win so that in a few years they can have their freedom. But within that, there's a lot of side things that you're trying to figure out. She's basically just doing this so that she can have her freedom, and she is like the most known assassin in their little like area, town, whatever you want to call it. I think this was like a notch below a 5 stars. This is like on my top priority of a series that I need to finish this year because all the books are out. Moving on to one of my favorite books ever. Favorite books. I've read this twice. Do you need something? You just the star of the show now? I'm gonna continue if that's okay with you. See ya. I've read this book twice now, and 5 stars each time. Better than the movies. The first time I read it was just like me getting into my reading journey. What better way to read this as your beginning journey into reading? Highly recommend. Second time I read it, I actually like annotated it, spent my time reading it. There is a second book coming out called Nothing Like the Movies. I don't know when this book's coming out, but I follow Lynn Painter and I always see stuff about it, and it makes me nervous. This is one of my faves, and I'm so scared that the second one might ruin it for me. Just like how movies, like you're always scared for the second one to come out because you don't want it to ruin the first one for you. I'm still gonna read it, obviously. Next one is Love and Gelato. I read this in the summer. This is a standalone, or you can read the other ones, which I think there's like 2 other ones. It isn't like a top priority of mine just because it did end fine and it wasn't like a top book for me, but I did like this. I do recommend this as a summer read, especially if you visit Italy. If you are going on an Italy vacation, this is your book to take with you. So cute. So fun. So this is about Lena, who her mother passes away and she doesn't know who her dad is. And basically her grandmother sends her to Italy where her dad supposedly lives, and that she gets to know her father. So basically she's spending the summer in Italy with her father to get to know him. And then she ends up meeting this guy named Ren, and she's kind of just making a friendship with him while also still trying to get to know her father, and it's really awkward for her and uncomfortable. And her father lives on a grave site, like he takes care of a grave site. So she also thinks like that's super creepy. She doesn't know this man. Basically, you're just following along of her finding out all about her father. I think she finds her mom's journal and kind of like visits all the places that her mom used to go to. Like I said, a great summer read because it does talk about like summer things, how hot it is. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one. This next one, Love Light Farms. This is a Christmas read that I thoroughly hated. I'm sorry, I couldn't do it. And I don't know why. It was around Christmas time. I really wanted a Christmas book to get into. They barely mentioned Christmas time in here. The main character, Stella, she owns a Christmas tree farm and she's basically trying to keep its upkeep and not shut down, but she's like struggling. And then this is like a best friends to lovers because she has a best friend, but he's like never in town. I don't even want to go into detail about this because I barely remember what it was about. I had to listen to the audiobook because I was not reading it well. The audiobook was 10 times worse because a female's reading it, but when she would read his part, she would try to use this gravelly man voice, and it did not work for it. It didn't work. And then also like the spicy scenes when it would get heated, oh, I wish I could erase it from my brain. It cringed me out so bad. I think the audiobook made it like 10 times worse for me. And I thought it was gonna make it better, but it for sure made it worse because of how it was being acted out. Was something I can't get out of my brain. This is like a standalone series. I don't see myself buying the other books just because of the experience I had, but we'll see if I give it another chance. Probably not. It's cute though. Cover's cute. That's all that matters, right? I think they say this is a standalone series, but that is Icebreaker. This is part of the Maple Hills series, and the second book is out, which is Wildfire. Again, it could be a standalone, but those characters, the main characters in Wildfire, or characters in this book that you kind of get the background of how they are around other people. So I am glad I read this, and I'm super excited to read Wildfire. Even though this wasn't one of my top reads, it was still a good read. I'm just not a spicy reader, and I would consider this a spicier book. This is basically about an ice skater and a hockey player, Nate. The hockey player's ice skating rink got kind of messed up, so they can't practice in there. So it's like that forced proximity where they are forced to be around each other because now they have to share their ice skating rink with the ice skaters and the hockey players. They have to like figure out how to work together. She is an ice skater, but she does couples ice skating. She doesn't just do solo skating. Her teammate is out for a bit and she has to use a replacement, and basically he is the replacement. There is a third one coming out soon, but I am looking forward to reading Wildfire. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I can't remember if this is standalone or not. Like I said, I have a lot of standalone if you want to just read the first book and that's it. And that's The Ex-Hex. I read this for October, that's why I wanted it, because it's a cute little like witchy romance. This girl Vivi and her cousin, years ago, Vivi gets upset because her and her boyfriend broke up. Her and her cousin basically curse him, but it's nothing serious. They didn't take it seriously. But a few years later, the curse is starting to come back up and actually become like he's getting cursed. And it's basically her and her old-time ex working through it and fixing the curse. I do think it is a cute Halloween book. It would be fun to read to get you in that little Halloween spirit, but I'm not a person that likes reading about spells and stuff. This book's harmless. It's just, everyone says they like their cutesy little banter. I didn't really like it. I just couldn't connect with it. It was a fast read, but I didn't really enjoy it that much, so I don't see myself getting the second book. The second one is called The Kiss Curse, so if you are interested and you do like this one, might as well get the second one. The next one is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I loved this book. It wasn't a 5-star, but it was close. So the second and third one is A Good Girl, Bad Blood, and As Good as Dead. A girl named Pip, and she's in high school doing a school project for her senior project, basically to, like, this project's very important for, like, her college to be a good, like, portfolio almost. And she gets too in depth with it because it's talking about, like, an old murder that happened back in the day in high school. This guy who supposedly kills his girlfriend, and then he kills himself. I really enjoyed this, and I'm very excited to read the other two. Next one is The Way I Used to Be. This book is about a teenage girl getting the R word by her brother's best friend. That's all in the back. Truly shows you what goes through people's minds when this happens to them and how scary it can be, especially when you're young. This was such a sad read, but I am so glad I read it. And the second one is called The Way I Am Now, but only a hardcover is out, so I'm waiting until the paperback comes out because I'm not about to have a paperback and then a hardcover as the second one. No. Definitely recommend reading this because it really shows how someone gets through the R word, how she kind of copes and changes her mindset through things. It's actually really sad, but I definitely recommend that one. Anytime someone's like, you know what, I want a good book, what should I read? That one. If you want to cry a little bit, if you want to feel sad for something and actually learn something, The Way I Used to Be. Last but not least, I say this for last because I just finished the second one, Done and Dusted, the Rebel Blue series, Swift and Saddled, and the third one is coming out as well, which is called Lost and Lassoed. First one, talking about Clementine, Emmy, and Brooks, Luke, her brother's best friend growing up, and she's kind of forced to come back home to kind of like think things through, just falling for her brother's best friend that she never thought she would. Just stopped recording because my storage is full, it's fine. To make this quick, there's a huge connection between this series. Emmy is a sibling to Wes, who the third one is going to be another sibling, Gus. This is Brooks, best friend to the other guy, Gus, and he's just a forced friend with him, nothing like against him. The girls' connections. Emmy, who is best friends with Teddy, which is going to be the third one. Teddy is college roommates or college friends with Ada. So this is Emmy and Brooks' love story. This is Ada and Wes's love story. And then the third one is going to be about Teddy and Gus. Love the covers. Not like a top read for me, but if you're ever wanting a cute, fast cowboy romance, definitely recommend. Loved these. Completely forgot I had to go and grab it, so I thought that was it. But I'm literally reading love redesigned right now. So I don't know how many are in this series. I just picked it up because I thought it was interesting. I just started this. I'm only like 20 pages in, but I'm liking it so far. So that's like the last series that I have on my shelves or that I'm wanting to read for this year so far. That was a lot more than I expected. I'm super excited for all these books to come out that haven't come out or the books that are out. I'm so excited to purchase and continue their stories. But thanks for stopping by, and I will catch you guys in the next one.